welcome to the story worthy hour of power. This is our 14th show. Our 14th show. So we are not messing around. And every one of the episodes, if you've missed it, is up on YouTube. So you can go back and watch all of the episodes so far. We've also got shows coming up for the entire fall. I got booked through August, booked through September. So you guys are going to be entertained by me every Sunday night. You're welcome. I do hope everybody is doing well out there. If you're keeping score at home and you were watching last week, you know that I rescued a kitten. You saw how cute that kitten is. I'm going to bring her out a little bit later, but I want to mention that she did a little something.
I don't know how to not. I don't know what to do. That
Rachel. Hey, Rachel, man, you're doing all the right things. You're fine. There's your picture. You're lovely. You are coming up a little later in the show. You're one of my favorite talents. So stick around for Rachel Butera a little later in the show. That's the thing with these Zoom shows. There's always a little bit of a little funky stuff going on, but that's all right because we're all friends here. And you know that I only bring you guys the very best talents. These guys have all been vetted because they've all been on the podcast. Yeah, that's how I know. So anyway, I got a kitten and she scratched my eye. I know you guys probably just thought I was stoned, but my eye is all red. Yeah, and I had to go to urgent care and everything. And guess what? It's a little kitten scratch fever is what it is. Kitten scratch fever. But a little bit of antibiotics in there and I'm taking care of it. No problem. Anyway, you guys, it's going to be a great show. And then, at 7 o'clock, we're playing Story Smash. And that as well has been going that also has been going so well. And tonight, Danny Zucker is here and Blanca Patch and Melissa Peterman. All three of them will be judging Story Smash. And as always, it's an all play. So if you guys want to play out there, stick around. You can raise your hand. And in the after show, everybody will be unmuted and it gets pretty raucous is what it gets. It's going to be a blast. But before the Story Smash game show begins, we are about to start the story worthy hour of power. And I am just so thrilled to have this first person on. He is such a talent. He was on Storyworthy just a few weeks ago, and he's just such an interesting person. I'm just thrilled he's here. This guy has been entertaining audiences for decades. Now, he was a regular on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and he toured with Frank Sinatra as his opening act for 14 years. Can you imagine? He acted on such shows as WKRP in Cincinnati, Columbo, Murder, She Wrote, and he was also in films like Spaceballs and The Rat Pack. Now, this guy has a brand new book out, and I highly recommend it. It's so interesting. It's on Amazon, and it's called Still Standing, My Journey from Streets and Saloons to the Stage and Sinatra. Wherever you guys are, folks, wherever you are, please put your hands together for the very talented Tom Dressen. Tom.
Thank you for that introduction. Wherever I go, no matter what I've done in my career, the films, the TV shows, all that stuff, still, whenever I'm interviewed, people say, tell me a Sinatra story, tell me a Frank Sinatra story, because he was larger than life. I was running a marathon one time for multiple sclerosis, and the CNN camera came out. Tom Dressen's about to run his first marathon, and we're ready to get started here. By the way, Tom, tell us about Frank Sinatra, just before I'm going to run it. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. One thing, it'll set up a story for later. Wherever Frank Sinatra went, he tipped $100. He didn't show off. If you were in a bar with him or a restaurant, if he got Jack in a Splash, which was his drink, if you brought it to him, he'd give the waiter $100. If you brought him a cup of coffee, you got $100. If you brought him a pack of Camels, you got $100. And like I say, he didn't show off. Usually he'd just slip it to you. And one night coming out of Mame San restaurant in Los Angeles, the valet parker pulled up with his car, and Frank started getting in the car, and he said, what's the biggest tip you ever got? And the kid said $100, and Frank gave him two $100 bills. And he turned around and he said to the kid, who gave you the $100? And he said, you did last Friday, Mr. Sinatra. And the other thing, I'm asked an awful lot about, what was it like opening for Frank Sinatra? And obviously, in casinos like Caesar's Palace and Desert Inn and the Sands Hotel, it was one thing, but he also did Uh-oh, something happened here. I think I'm off screen. I'm not sure. Am I still on screen?
Yeah, you're great. You sound.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay. Anyhow, when you worked with him, he did 20,000 seat arenas. In Hawaii, he did 40,000 seats. You know, for a stand-up comedian, that's a difficult thing. And so the first time I had to open for him as road manager, we're at the Nassau Coliseum, and there's 20,000 people there, and you're in the round. And this is what he told me. He said, Tom, there's 20,000 people out there. And so what I want you to do, I want you to go out there. You're first, and I want you to go out there. And for the next 45 minutes, I want you to stand in the center of the arena. And I want you to hold the attention of 20,000 people. You know, I want you to, you know, stand there and hold their attention for the next 45 minutes. So one more thing, Tom, I want you to hold their attention, but I want you to make them laugh for 45 minutes. One more thing, Tom, I want you to hold their attention and make them laugh, but I want you to make them laugh when you want them to laugh. I want you to pull the strings on the emotions of 20,000 people. No props, no tricks, no charts, no special arrangement, no special lighting, no orchestra, nothing. Just you and 20,000 people. And one more thing, Tom, not one of them came to see you. So that's my mission impossible. And what I would do, I would go out there every night. The orchestra was in the pit, and they'd, you know, start with ba ba da da ba. The theater would go dark, and the audience would get all excited because they thought Frank was coming out. So I would go out on, as I walked out on stage, you know, the light would go down, and the guy would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, our comedy star of our show, Tom Dressen." And you had people moaning as I'm walking to the stage. Oh, you know. So now when I get to the stage, I would say, how many of you out there thought that Frank Sinatra was coming out? Applaud, those who thought he was coming out. And they would applaud. I'd say, I know just how you feel. I'm a little bit disappointed myself. And I'd get a laugh. Now, I wouldn't waste my new material up front. I still had to get their attention. If there's 20,000 people in the arena, 3,000 are still trying to find their seats. So I had to bring the focus to me. So I would say, how many of you out there applaud? How many of you out there are in this arena for your very first time? And they would applaud. I didn't say raise your hand. I said applaud. And they would applaud. I'd say, well, how many of you out there are seeing Frank Sinatra live your very first time? And they would applaud. I say, how many of you out there aren't wearing any underwear? Applaud. Now, they would applaud. Now, I'm wasting this, but I'm saying I talk, you react. I talk, you react. They're all around me, 20,000 people. So I was talking to everybody, bringing the focus to me. And that's when I did my A material, once I got them focused on me. But if I would have went out there up front with the A material, it's not going to go anywhere. And my first 2 or 3 jokes are always about that local area. I would write jokes that day or prior to going there if I knew, get some information, and have 2 or 3 jokes about that area. So I would, you know, have that going for me before I went into my A material. Now, the last story that I want to tell is that people oftentimes ask me, what is the hardest performance you ever had in your career? And ironically, the hardest performance for me, where I had to go out and make people laugh, was at Frank Sinatra's funeral. Now, I wasn't told to make people laugh. I was a pallbearer, and I was the master of ceremonies at his funeral, and I spoke at his funeral. And I had to go out first. And I said to the priest when I went there, I said it was at Our Lady of Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills. And in that church was everybody and anybody that you've ever heard of in show business was there. People from all over the world were there, leaders, you know, heads of states. And it was just an incredible audience, you know, and that was pressure enough. But I was supposed to just tell something about Frank, but I knew that he would want me to make them laugh. Every night before I'd go on stage, I'd be walking by his dressing room when I was working with him. He'd say, "Tommy, you going on?" And I'd say, "Yeah." He said, "Be funny and be brief." That was his favorite line, "Be funny and be brief." So I'm thinking that he would want me to make them laugh. I know that's what he'd want me to do. So I said to the priest, you know, when I got there, "When do I go up?" He said, "You follow communion." I said, "Okay." So I had my daughter with me. When communion was almost over, I went up past the altar and stood off to the side and waiting for him to motion me. Now communion was over, and he looked at me and you know, he motioned me to stay there. And I said, "Okay." Now they start playing, the choir starts singing Ave Maria. And now everybody at the church is so solemn. And the problem with going to one funeral, it reminds you of all the other funerals you've been to, you know, my parents and stuff like that. So, but I'm thinking, no, I'm going to make them laugh. And because I remember I'm half Sicilian and I'm half Irish. Frank Sinatra once told me, he said, "Tommy, Sicilians don't cry." And I want to make sure I didn't cry at his funeral, as much as I love the guy. But he said, "Sicilians don't cry, Tommy, they cry alone." I said, "But I'm half Irish." He said, "Well, Irish cry when they change bus drivers." I said, "Okay." So now, anyhow, Now, the Ave Maria is over, and I look at the priest, and it's real quiet in the church. You could hear the pews crackling, and I look at the priest to motion me, and he told me to stay where you're at. And I stand there, and now Frank Sinatra's voice came over the speaker. Put your dreams away for another day. That was his signature song when he had a TV show. So that, you know, now that everybody's crying in the church because Frank's singing, and I'm going, oh no, I don't want to get melancholy. I don't want to get emotional. And I start looking at the walls and saying, gee, they should plaster that over there. I wonder if they play bingo in the basement here. I'm doing all this to get my mind off of it. Finally, the song is over. I'm looking in the audience, all these stars, you know, Tony Bennett and you know, Vic Damone and every star in Hollywood, Gregory Peck and Kirk Douglas, they're wiping tears out of their eyes. Now the priest motions me out there. I walk out there, and I say to the audience, I said, how many of you in this church stayed up with Frank Sinatra every night till dawn? Because everybody knew that Frank never went to bed till the sun came up. And I said, and I did that with Frank for 14 years. I got a little bit tired after about 10 years, but I said, and I, you know, one night we were pulling into Fort Lauderdale, and you know, this night we were going to work the Sunrise Theater for 1 week, but we were going to do a one-nighter in Fort Myer, a one-nighter in Daytona, and a one-nighter in Sarasota. But the first night we had off. So we flew in this private jet. The plane landed, the squad cars and limousines rushed us to the hotel. And, you know, and he's getting out of the limousine, and he's going into the lounge because we had the night off. And I snuck up to my room because I wanted to play golf in the morning. And I said, great. I get to my room, and I said, great, I don't have to hang out tonight. I'm in there 5 minutes, I heard pounding on the door. I opened the door, it's a big bellman. He looked like a linebacker for the Miami Dolphins, big redheaded guy with a crew cut. He said, Mr. Dressen, Mr. Sinatra wants you downstairs in the lounge. And I reached in my pocket, I pulled out $20. I said, tell him you couldn't find me. He backed up, he said, Mr. Sinatra gave me $100 to tell you he wants you downstairs in the lounge. I said, oh, you know, couldn't you tell me you couldn't find me? Could you do that for me? He said, he told me if you resist and I had to drag you down there, he'd give me $200. So I went down there, and sure enough, he patted me on the face. Hey, Pally, what do you say? Let's hang out. And of course, we hung out till dawn again. Those are the stories that I want to tell you. That of all the things that I've done in my career, it's hard to describe what it was like opening for this living legend, this icon, but also how gratifying it was. Because when you could turn that audience around and get them ready for him, get them set up for him, it was a challenge of all challenges. And I don't regret one moment of it. In the 14 years I toured with Frank Sinatra, I turned down more sitcoms than most comedians get offered in a lifetime, because I knew it was the end of an era. And touring with Sammy Davis before him for 3 years, touring with Dean Martin afterward, and doing shows with Dean Martin. These were three guys that I admired ever since I was a little kid, shining shoes in bars. And I didn't want to miss that journey. And I don't regret it. I won't have as much money as my friends David Letterman and Jay Leno, but I think that my memories are far richer than having the money in my pocket. Thank you, Christine. That's my time, by the way. I just looked at and I stuck to my time.
Tom Dressen. Oh my gosh. Sir, you are so fantastic. Tom, let me ask you something. How are you so handsome? What is going on?
You know, you're the first woman that's ever said that to me. So, you know, I'll give you the $100 Frank would have given you for that remark. You know?
No, but you're having a birthday coming up, I know, this fall, and you just look so great.
Well, thank you. I feel good. I work out. I stay in shape. You know, and every now and then I shadow. I'll box Bill Dawes in the back of the Laugh Factory. You know, take him outside, slap him around a little bit. You know.
You're so funny. Bill Dawes is coming up in a minute, you guys. Thanks again, Tom Dressen. That was a fabulous story, and I really appreciate your time. You guys really
I'm so happy. I opened for Frank Sinatra, and tonight I opened up for Melissa.
That's it.
It's all downhill from here.
All right. You guys, this next storyteller, she is just phenomenal. She's an actress who played the character Barbara Jean opposite Reba McEntire on the show Reba for 120 episodes. She also appeared on the ABC Family Freeform series Baby Daddy, and as the host of ABC's Family's Dancing Fools. No, wait. ABC Family's Dancing Fools and ABC's Bet Your Baby. That's the one I remember. Bet on Your Baby. She also was on the CMT's show hosting The Singing Bee. And in 1996, this really does impress me, Melissa. In 1996, Melissa Peterman made her film debut as hooker number 2 in the Oscar-winning movie Fargo by the Coen brothers. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the fabulous Melissa Peterman.
Well, hello, everybody. And again, Tom, I know that it's got to be a couple rings down the ladder. You got to open for Sinatra, and now you kind of open for me. But I now get to say that the guy who opened for Sinatra opened for me, which is a feather in my cap. So thank you, and thank you, Tom, for sharing your story, because that was such a treat. And I cannot wait. I got to read your book. Anyway, hi everybody. How are you? I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Christine. And I was thinking today, like, you know, what is a story that is worthy of story worthy? And I'll be honest, I have zero core strength right now during this pandemic, and I feel like my brain is also atrophied. So I was thinking, maybe what's a story that everyone can either, you know, we wish we could do it now, or we're doing it now, or something like that. So I thought I would go with the classic, the greatest story of day drinking I can remember. Because it involves travel, which we can't do, which we can dream about again. It involves being in bars, and which we will someday do again, and day drinking, which I've been doing for 5 months. So I figured it was all coming together. So this is my story. So one of my favorite all-time afternoons in a bar was in 2003, 2004. I'm in Cork, Ireland, at a it's kind of a famous bar. It's a famous dive bar called the High B. Well, I'll backtrack for a second. So this is like 2003. I think I'd been on Reba for like 2 years, and I was so excited because I was working. You know, I was an actor that I had a little bit of money, or at least more than I'd ever had. So I was so excited to buy my husband a Christmas present, a big Christmas present, you know, something that we could never have done forever. And so I was going to get him a trip to Ireland. My husband's name is John Brady. They take their Irish heritage very seriously. His dad, Wallace Brady, I think was slightly disappointed that I was not a Murphy or an O'Reilly. So he convinced himself when he met me that I probably was Irish, because my Swedish Nordic Viking heritage, like the Vikings probably at one point raided Ireland, and therefore somehow down the line I was Irish. So anyway, they take their Irish heritage seriously. So my Christmas gift was like, John and I, we're going to take a trip. We've never done anything like this before. We're going to go to Ireland. And that Christmas, I packed up little books about Ireland, some, Jameson whiskey, whatever. And I gave the gift. We're going to go to Ireland. Big deal. Very cool. So that following summer, we go to Ireland. We have a great time. We do London, we do Scotland, and we end up in Ireland. And he is having the best time ever. He feels like everyone is a relative, which, by the way, if you walk into any bar in Ireland, they treat you like family, which is why it's still one of my favorite places ever. He thought he was running into relatives. They all looked like a Brady. They had the Brady chin. And he loved it because he's like, they can tell, they know I'm Irish. You don't quite have the the twinkle in your eye. You're more stoic and Norwegian. But we're having the best time ever. We're doing tours, we're kissing the Blarney Stone, which isn't code for anything. It was actually kissing the Blarney Stone. And it was lovely, truly the best people. And we can't wait to go back when we can travel again. So it's coming up in our last couple of days. And I have heard about this bar called the High B. And it's called like the best little dive bar in Cork. And I get dinner reservations that night. So I'm like, let's go to the High B. We'll have a little cocktail, and then we'll go on to our last sort of dinner, Ireland, toast. We did it. And I think I had reservations. I actually got him dinner reservations at the bar the restaurant that Bono owned. I just wanted to name drop because I don't have Sinatra in my story. So I just wanted to put a name in there. So we were going to go to the High B, have a drink, go on to our last big dinner. So we go into the High B, and it's this tiny little thing. It was an old little hotel, and the bar is actually you walk in and you go up these little stairs, because it used to be where it would flood a lot. So the bar was upstairs, and it looks like a little living room, super quaint, a lot of locals, and even to this day, you're not allowed to bring cell phones into the bar. Like it is, and it's strict about it. But this is back in 2004, and I don't think We even had ones that worked there, or if they did, they were the size of, a shoebox. So that wasn't even really which is unfortunate because I wish I had photos of this day. So we're in the bar, we're sitting there, we're having, I get a little pint of Guinness, we're sitting there having a great time. And there's this couple that's sitting at the bar, and they're probably about the same age, and, obviously locals, having a great time, and they're drinking, and, we're gonna have one or two. And, we notice that they start to argue, like, they're completely fighting, just like, and by the way, if you have a dump button, Christine, you might want to use it during any time I attempt an Irish accent, because it's probably more offensive if I did than swearing. So I'll try it. But, he's screaming like, I never loved you. And she's like, I hate you. And they're like completely, fighting. And I am very Midwestern. Like, we don't show feelings in public or in private. We like to repress them until one unfortunate Thanksgiving where they all erupt. And, they're fighting. Nobody's even flinching. They're not even doing a thing. It's like, it happens all the time. Things are happening. She's crying, just like, I wasted my life on you, just all this stuff. And we're sitting here, and I think, all right, it's getting time for us to go. Should we go? And John and I both look at each other and go, there's no way we can go. We need to see how this plays out. Like, it's the best channel we've ever watched. And so we stay, we order another one. We're getting close to the reservation, but we're going to ride this out. The couple then starts to make out, or like make up and make out. Like, they go from completely fighting to just almost, laying down on the bar. Again, nobody's flinching. It's like we're watching them go through their entire, life story in 5 minutes. So they're fighting, they're making out, and then they're singing. Then they start singing Irish, ballads and all this, and we can't stop watching it. I mean, it's the most fascinating thing in the whole world. And then they turn their eyes on us, and they start to walk over to our booth, and I'm nervous, excited, and what could happen? And John, of course, they're like, are these taken? And again, I shouldn't try that Irish accent. Oh, for crying out loud! This is horrible. I apologize to everybody. They sit down at the bar, they look at John, and he says, oh, what's your name? And John's like, John Brady's like, you're Brady. You need to move back to the homeland and fight. Like, they're having this whole thing where John needs to come back to his homeland, and he's clearly drunk. The girlfriend, wife, I don't know, sits next to me, and she's telling me, whatever you do, don't you let an Irishman in you. Don't you ever do it. Don't let one in you. And like telling me that I need to run the minute I will, because I've now married a Brady, that my life is over. It's all going to there. Then we continued to have some drinks with them. This is back when John did drink. And so we were having some drinks with them. I'm going back and forth, like I'm taking her side and then his side. They break up again, they fight again, they start singing, then we start joining them, which is very, again, I don't express that much in public. And so cut to 20 minutes later, I'm like, you're right, you should leave him. You should leave him. Then it's all going on. We're there now. It's probably 5 hours in. We're absolutely not going to dinner. We're going to ride this out. Whiskey, harp, Guinness, all of this is happening. I think John is almost convinced to leave me and join. I don't know if he was in the IRA. I don't know. Maybe move back to Ireland, whatever this was. I'm on her side. I'm going to move to Ireland and open a candle store. All these things are happening. And then, she needs to go to the bathroom, and you have to go up these little stairs. So she asked me if I can help her up to the bathroom. And which I didn't know, I don't know if it's an Irish thing or just a normal thing, which that actually meant carry her up to the bathroom, which I did because I have the shoulders of a college football player. So I carry her up to the bathroom, and I have to help her take off her skirt, her shoe. She wanted her shoes off. It was like this whole thing. Go to the bathroom. She grabs my face and tells me not to get messed up with this Irish boy, even though he is Wisconsin Irish. He's not, they lived in Elroy, Wisconsin. And I'm, telling him well, we just got married 3 years. I can't leave him now, Moira, So go to the bathroom, come back down. We end up spending another 5 hours there. We don't eat at all. So it's a mess. By the end, we're singing Irish anthem songs. We have to call a cab to get us back to the hotel. We missed the dinner. But it was one of those moments where I was so excited that I had gotten these reservations. And it was, it's one of those lovely reminders that the best things happen when you don't plan them. Like, always make reservations that you can cancel, or you don't care if you cancel them. And it was just one of those lovely afternoons that we didn't expect it to happen. We thought we were going to go into this bar, have one Guinness, toast to a great trip, and head off to dinner. And what we ended up was living an entire, somebody's lifetime. Like, I wish you could have had phones, but in a way I'm glad you didn't, because it truly was. They broke up, got back together. He proposed to her at one point, then decided he would never talk to her again, all within the span of whatever those 12 hours were. And those were the best, we lived a lifetime at the Hy-Vee. So that's my story there. And, cut to 17 years later, I did not listen to Moira in the Hy-Vee bathroom. And I did let that Irish boy in, and we have a little Riley Brady ourselves, who's 14 years old. And I'm glad I didn't listen to her. So there's my story. Day drink and don't make plans. And if you make them, let them change. So there you go.
I love it. I totally agree, Melissa. I totally agree. I love everything you just said. And I have to say that John Brady, your husband,
Yeah.
you know the story, Melissa.
Which one?
I worked the safety valet with John for 4 years at Ivanhoe at our children's elementary school. My daughter was in the grade just one grade younger than Riley. And I remember chatting with John, every week we'd be on this same valet line. And I always said, where's your wife? And I'd say, what's she doing? He'd say, oh, she's an actress. And it just never occurred to me, because there's a lot of actors and actresses in LA. And then all of a sudden you're on my show on Story Smash. And then you say, I'm going to bring my husband, John Brady.
Who's quite a legend in his own right. Like, he's one of the funniest people in the world. And like, again, if I could, what I love just picturing this moment of John in this tiny bar in Ireland, and they're holding court, and at one point arms around each other, singing like he'd been there forever. Like, that's that guy. So he's actually he's a neighborhood celebrity, really.
He is such a great guy. He makes everybody very comfortable. He's super easygoing. And I miss going to school with you guys. I miss going to school at all, is what I miss.
Me too. I totally miss it. It's going to be a weird year, but we'll get through this. We'll get through it.
I know, we will. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's like I was the homeschooling my kid. Then it's been like I've been the summer camp counselor, and now we go back to homeschooling tomorrow. My daughter starts her eighth grade. I can't even believe it. And so your son is in ninth grade then.
Look, I was already doing my curtain down, and then I'm back up.
Sorry.
He starts high school on Tuesday.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. It's
Unbelievable.
Crazy. And he starts in our basement, so
here we go. That's it.
I always told him that I couldn't homeschool. I would always joke in my stand-up that if I had a homeschool, I would have to get substitute teachers every day because I couldn't do it.
I know. I mean, I know. Especially the math, like I completely stopped math in about fourth grade. So she's kind of on her own. But anyway, we go back to school this week. So that's that. All right, you guys. Thanks again, Melissa. She's going to be judging Story Smash tonight. So keep tuned for Story Smash at 7:00. And right now, I would like to share with you the new member of my family, the 3 pounds I recently gained. And her name is Olive. I got a kitten. Isn't she cute? I rescued her. She's the one that scratched my eye. All right, so that's that. Thank you. Oh, okay. just shuffle her off to the pet handler. Anyway, you guys, I wanted to share a story tonight about coming out to Los Angeles, because tomorrow, not only is my daughter starting school, tomorrow is my 23rd anniversary living in Los Angeles. 23 years in LA tomorrow. And when I first came to Los Angeles, I left Pittsburgh at about August 10th. I left Pittsburgh, and my buddy, a guy named Ellis Diaz, Ellis said that he would help me cross the country, driving with me, that he would drive to Denver with me. And Ellis was a flight attendant like I had been. So we literally left Pittsburgh, and then we drove straight to Denver to DIA Airport, and I dropped Ellis off. And I said, thanks for driving across the country with me. Have a good flight. So anyway, now the idea was that I'll stay in Colorado for about a week visiting friends, and then I'm going to go down to Vegas, meet another friend who's going to help me drive on to Los Angeles. So that's the course I'm going to take. So now I am in Colorado. I spend some time, and then I drive down to Vegas. Now, I get to Las Vegas, and I'm going to meet up with my friend. Like I said, his name is Scott, and we dated for like a year. Now, we were not, he lives in LA. So that's how I knew a little bit more about, I knew about Los Angeles because I was a flight attendant, but I also, when we were dating, I learned a lot about LA as well. So anyway, he wants to meet in Vegas, and I tell him, look, I'd love to meet with you, and you can help me drive back, drive to LA, but there's nothing going to happen here. We're through. We are not together anymore. And by coincidence, or ironically, I had also just finished chemotherapy. If you've been following along at home, you know my story. So I'd only been out of chemo for like 6 weeks. So that's the other reason why Ellis helped me cross the country. So now I'm in Vegas, and Scott has booked a room at the MGM Hotel. At the MGM at that time was a big deal. It was like all green on the outside, and they called it the Emerald Castle or whatever, because it was like the Wizard of Oz theme. And inside the lobby, there was a yellow brick trail and all that stuff, yellow brick road. So he gets this room. It's $420 a night, which is still a lot of money, but it was a lot of money 23 years ago. But he insists on paying for the room, and he says, don't worry, there's 2 beds, no worries. I just want to help you because you had been ill, and I'll help you. In addition, I had sent a bunch of my belongings, like boxes and stuff, to his house because, again, he was going to kind of help me get into LA. But I get to Vegas, and guess what? He doesn't think he does think that we're going to get back together. He thinks this is his big reunion weekend. And even though I'm bald from chemo and I'm weak and I'm not attractive, he wants to get together again. And I say no, and he gets pissed. So at one point, it's at night, it's in Las Vegas, about 10:30 at night. He is drinking too much. He drinks too much. And he says, and I say, look, nothing's happening. And he gets so mad at me. We're in a bar. He says, I think you need to drive me back to the airport right now. And I said, I think you better take a cab. And that was it, right? So that's it. It's over. He leaves, and he does fly back to LA. So now I'm in Vegas by myself at 11 p.m. No problem. I got this great room. He said something like, enjoy the room, because he had paid for it, of course. So he leaves. Now, I walk across the street to the Excalibur Hotel. You guys know the Excalibur. It's the big castle, and they've got like the horse jousting and all that. But I ordered their yard-long margarita. It's, a yard long. And I walk around Excalibur sipping on this margarita. And I drink the whole thing. And it's a lot of alcohol. So I go back to the MGM, get back into the room, and I pass out. When I wake up in the morning, it's 10:30 in the morning. The checkout's at 11 a.m. So I call the desk and I say, can I have a late checkout, right? This is obvious. I do it all the time. Give me a late checkout. And they say, no. They say, you got to be out of here in 20 minutes or we're going to charge you again, $420. And of course, I can't pay for a night at the MGM. So I say, okay, I'll go. So now I have to pack up my car. I had brought up from the parking garage my guitar, my bicycle, and everything because I didn't want anything to get ripped off. So now I've got to pack up my car and head out. And I've got a half hour, 20 minutes. I can do this. So we're going to the bathroom. I have a little headache from the night before. And so I pop 2 aspirin. And then I brush my teeth and start pulling my items together, my sundries. And then I look down and I realize I took 2 Valium. Yeah, I didn't take aspirin. I took Valium. And now the clock is ticking and I got to go. So I start moving as fast as I can. And I pack all my shit. I get one of those big, cart things down at the desk, and I take it to the car, and I get all my stuff down there, and I get my bike on the roof. I get my guitar in the back seat. I pack all my shit in there, and I drive out of Vegas. And I get about 7 miles out of Vegas. And it is, in the middle of the desert. And now it's about 11:30 in the morning. And I am so tired, and the ambient starts kicking in. I pull over to the side of the road, and I fall asleep in the car for 13 hours. I wake up at 1 a.m. It's pitch dark. Nobody has checked on me. I've been in the desert in a car for 13 hours. I'm parched. I'm hot. I'm sweating. And I start up my Toyota Celica, get a cup of coffee, and I drive the rest of the way to Los Angeles. So it was a tricky beginning, but I got here, and then I had to call that guy, and I had to get my boxes. It was very uncomfortable. Fuck it. Anyway, it was a tricky beginning, but now I'm here. And so happy anniversary to me, 23 years. And as you know, I also just celebrated 10 years of Storyworthy, my podcast. So for me, on my anniversary, my 10-year anniversary and my 23-year anniversary, you guys head over to storyworthypodcast.com and then go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe for free, rate and review. I'll put it in the chat room. And by the way, feel free to use that chat room, you guys. There's all sorts of stuff in there. I'm putting up people's Instagrams and Twitters and all that good stuff. So check the chat room, would you? Okay, you guys, we're only about 20 minutes away from Story Smash. We've got 2 more guests coming up right now, including this guy right now. He's so talented. I love this guy. I just met him, and I've only met him about, 6 months ago, and I really enjoy your work so much. You guys, you're going to love this guy. He is a comedian. He's performed all over the world. He's one of those guys that performs for the troops a lot. He's also been a 3-time Broadway veteran, and he's been on over 50 television shows and movies. Please welcome the very, very talented Bill Dawes.
Yay. All right, you can hear me, right?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay, well, I'm sure. All right, so my story happened about a year ago. I did another story with Christine about being detained in Egypt. This one's quicker, and it's cute, and it's light. So I was in Australia touring with Maz Jobrani, and I thought it'd be really fun it's another road trip story. It'd be fun to drive from Melbourne to Adelaide, where I was performing. And there was a young comic, a young black comic named Joe White, who wanted to kind of tag along and get a guest spot. And I figured it was like a 5-hour drive, so why not? So we start the road trip. Like I said, it's 5 hours from Melbourne to Adelaide. And I'm in a rental car. Now, if you've never rented a car overseas, I guess there are 2 or 3 countries where they have the car is on the wrong side of the road, or whatever, the right side of the road, depending on who you're talking to, and the steering wheel is in the other hand, So I'm in one of these. I've never had a rental car in one of these countries before. So, the driving's a little awkward. And we start the journey, right? And Joe is kind of always giving me a hard time about my white privilege. Because to Joe, who is from Ethiopia originally, I'm like the embodiment of everything white male. You know what I mean? Like, my life is just perfect. He knows I went to Princeton. He just thinks I'm this really entitled white guy. So whenever that comes to me and people think that about me, I always kind of have like, I grew up sort of, like I say, I'm half white, half trash in my act. I grew up lower middle class from a family that resembled something closer to Angela's ashes. Most of the Irish side is all dead from the drink. My mom is the last one standing. She's kind of held together by like spit and paper clips and gum. So I kind of tell him my hard knock story about growing up with an alcoholic mom and an absent father, and just how, things are tough everywhere. The line from The Outsiders, And then Joe's like kind of listening to me, he goes, well, he basically does the like Australian equivalent of like, hold my beer. And he tells me about being in Ethiopia and fleeing from Ethiopia with his mother and his 3 brothers and sisters. So it's actually, there's 6 kids altogether. And they fled from Ethiopia to the Sudan. Now, which seems like it's not a lateral move. It doesn't seem like a very I don't know, but I guess they had to flee somewhere, and they flew to the Sudan. And he grew up as a street kid in the Sudan. And all this is really kind of surprising me because Joe is a successful comic in Australia. He's very polished and buttoned up. He's got a suit and tie. He's been on Australia's Got Talent. His opening joke on Australia's Got Talent was this. Hey, I guess they have the 3 panelists. He goes, hey, everyone, you might recognize me from TV. And they kind of go, no. And he just kind of bugs his eyes and he just starts pretending like he's swatting flies because he's a skinny Ethiopian kid. That's his opening joke, not mine, so you can't cancel me. Anyway, and he tells me that when he lived as a street kid in Sudan, the biggest fear was about being kidnapped to be a child soldier in whatever next country is, or that his sisters were going to be raped. That was a daily fear living on the streets in Sudan, right? So right away I'm going like, oh man, my story is, I get what he's doing right now. I'm doing like the white privilege thing. I totally get it. My life is not hard. This is how bad it was. This was their security system. The mother would take a rope, tie a rope around herself, have 3 kids on one side, have 3 kids on the other side, and tie a rope around every child when they'd go to sleep. So that when someone came to try to grab a boy to be a child soldier or a girl to rape, it was sort of like a built-in alarm system that they would all get together and like try to fight the person off. And it happened a lot. So I'm blown away by this story. And he's telling in a very sort of casual way of like, this was just my life. And I'm driving, like I said, I'm on the wrong side of the road. I'm driving with my right hand. I'm usually with my left hand. And I guess I'm not paying attention to the speed limit or to how I'm driving or the law or whatever it is. And I'm just kind of mesmerized, listen to the story. And at one point, sure enough, boop, 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 we see some cop lights in the back. And I'm like, oh my God, man, we're getting pulled over. And all I'm thinking is how long was he tailing me for? And I didn't know what my speed was. It's kilometers. I don't really pay attention to it. And I pull over. I think right away I start to pull over to the right. I'm like, oh shit. And I pull over to the left. Cops back there, lights still flashing. And Joe's kind of freaking out because he's like, Australian cops are so tough, man. They're going to really be hard and you could go to jail right now. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, relax, we're fine. The cop comes up. I guess 2 of them come. They flank us. One's on my side, one's on Joe's side. Knock on the window. I rolled. I don't know why I did this to roll it down. It was automatic. It's not that old a car. Anyway, I rolled down the window, and the cop says, so what's wrong? Are you intoxicated? And I'm like, no, I don't even drink at all. He goes, well, why are you driving so fast? I go, I'm a comic and I have a gig in Adelaide and we're supposed to be there in 2 hours. And I guess I'm just trying to make sure I get to the gig in time. He's like, yeah, well, I don't think you'll be going to your gig tonight. So you'll be lucky if you can do your gig tonight. And I go, oh man, please. I'm new to Australia. I haven't driven on this side of the street before. And I guess I just was a little careless. He goes, we followed you for 5 miles and you were swerving. You looked like you were drunk or stoned and you were speeding and then slowing down and swerving. And I just said, he was telling me a story. And I got really distracted. I apologize. And he goes, give me your license registration. So I give him terrible Australian accent. Forgive me. He gives me the stuff. He goes back into his car. And Joe just starts telling me stories about how tough Australian police officers are. Oh, we might go to jail or you might go to jail. This is really bad. And I don't think we're gonna make the show. So I'm going, fuck, this can't happen. I look back in the rearview mirror and I see the 2 cops are kind of like talking to each other and they're kind of looking down at something like talking to each other. About 10 minutes. And I'm like, what the hell are they looking at? Like, I have no idea. Like, what could, like, I don't have any criminal record on my background, I don't think. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, the cop comes up to my right side, knocks on the window. I roll it down. No, I put it down. And he says, so, William Dawes, are you a married man? And I'm thinking, oh my God, Dawes is actually a kind of common name in Australia. And maybe there's some William Dawes murderer who's been going around the outback and killing people or something like that. So right away, I'm like, this could be a mistaken identity case. This could be issues. This could be like weeks of dealing with this shit. I go, no, I'm not married. He goes, yeah. Well, me and the missus are having a bit of a problem these days. So I kind of appreciated your bit about staying single. And I'm kind of like, what, my bit about? And I go, wait a second. Did you just Google me back there? And then he goes, yeah, I Googled that bit about staying single, huh? He goes, yeah, I understand. I can relate to it. Like I said, me and the missus going through a divorce. So I kind of appreciate that. And I go, oh. And I kind of look at John and go, well, did you think it's funny? Because as a comic, that's all you care about. Do you think it's funny? So I go, do you think it's funny? He goes, well, I'm not going to give you a ticket, am I? He goes, but what I got to do, because they're filming me, I got to give you something. So I'm going to give you an official warning. Now, apparently that's something you can have someone write an official warning. It looks like a ticket, but just says warning. So he wrote me an official warning. He said, he goes, so you got to drive better than that. And I said, you know what? Like I said, I'm new to this. I might have my friend Joe drive. And the cop looks over, sees Joe. And Joe's a very dark, black kid. And he looks at me and goes, I don't know. Well, I guess he can't do worse than you. And he walks away. And he lets me go. Huge relief. Oh, my God. We drive away, a minute in total silence. And then Joe takes my ticket. He goes, he sees it says warning. He goes, that is the most white privilege shit I've ever seen in my life. And I can't, I can't deny it. But I try to tell him, Joe, that's funny privilege. That's when you have a good bit that appeals to people who are miserable in their lives and they can relate. But that's the first time my comedy's ever got me off a ticket. And that's my story.
That's an amazing story. That is so funny. Bill, you can do, oh my gosh, you did a great Australian accent. That was excellent.
I should have, it's so funny because I had this story. I said, I tell a story, but I hadn't worked on it. And I definitely feel like every time I do accent, I'm like, I got to work on that accent for a bit.
It's good, though. It's really good. Now, your buddy Joe, does he still do comedy?
Yeah, he does. Joe White. He's actually, it's so funny. I talked to him yesterday because I said, Joe, because, we talked briefly and I said that he went to Somalia. I go, I want these. He goes, no, this is Sudan. He goes, you racist.
Yeah,
so I said, just give me some of the details in case I don't remember it exactly.
Right.
So he gave me details about how much trouble I should have gotten in terms of going to jail and all that stuff, which I don't remember. But he has his Instagram and everything. I think it's Joe White official, but his name is Joe White.
Well, let's get him on the show.
I'd love to have him on the show. That'd be great.
Hook me up with him via email, would you?
I will, for sure.
Thank you. All right, you guys, one more fabulous storyteller coming up, and then we start Story Smash, the storytelling game show. All right, this girl, guys, she is full of talent. She is a voiceover artist, a comedian, an actress, and honestly, the best impressionist I've ever heard in my life. She is stunning. She is the winner of the Howard Stern Show Impressions Contest and USA's First Impressions, which was with Dana Carvey and Freddie Prinze Jr. She also appeared as a contestant on NBC's America's Got Talent. Please, folks, wherever you are so lucky to be seeing the fabulous Rachel Butera. Rachel.
Hello?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't need this, do I?
You don't.
Okay. Hey, guys. Okay. So, it's summer. And I'm going to tell you a summer story. Basically, my family never went anywhere. When I was a kid growing up in New Jersey, summers, there were no family vacations. We never packed into a car and drove to a theme park or went camping. There were no weekend getaways or trips to the zoo. We just sat in the air conditioning and my parents smoked. The main reason was because my father had a heart condition and my parents didn't want to go too far away from his doctors. And the other reason was we couldn't afford it. So the most we did was go over to my aunt and uncle's house for cake and coffee after dinner, and we sat inside where everybody smoked. I mean, I had fun with my cousins, but it wasn't like a summer event, So, I mean, camp, never heard of it. Camp, going away to camp. We weren't a camp town. Everybody in my town was Italian. Italians don't do camp. Like, try and tell an Italian mother you're going to send her kid away and the kid's going to eat somebody else's food and have their laundry done by somebody else. No, that's That's not going to happen. But of course, I was this like bratty, rambunctious kid, and I would beg for things, and I just wanted experiences my parents couldn't afford. And I was this congested little chubbo, and I would just be like, "Ma, I want to go to camp. Why can't I go to camp? Nick's going to camp. Send me to camp." And my mother would be like, "Yeah, right. You want to get on a bus with a stranger that's going to take you to a lake far away and drown you? You're going to hate the food, hate the heat, hate the bugs. You'll hate camp." And then I would ask my father, and he'd be like, "You're going to get pregnant." And I'd say, "Dad, I'm 9. He'd say, "I don't care." So no camp. And I'd stomp around the house, totally bored, and then I'd finally be like, "I'm going down the park to Thick." And I'd go sit on a swing with just a few of the undesirable kids because all the good ones were on vacation. And of course, the first day of school comes around, and what's the assignment? What I did on my summer vacation, write an essay. And I would sit there like this and just stare at the paper. I loved to write, but I felt I had nothing to say. I mean, I'm sure I did, but my little kid brain didn't have a gratitude journal at that point, so I didn't know that I was doing fun things. I just wanted to go on a family vacation. So I'd sit there and I'd look at Melissa, knowing she went to Disneyland, and Vinny, knowing he went to Wildwood for 2 weeks, and Dina went to her grandmother's house in Florida. I mean, these weren't extravagant trips, but it was something. Not like the kids today. I talk to my friends today, they're teenagers, they're like, "Hey, Dad, remember when we went diving in the Maldives and it just wasn't as good as when we went snorkeling in the Yucatan? Remember? Oh, Ma, remember that shitty waiter who supposedly brought us Gulf shrimp? Yeah, they were rock shrimp, right, Ma?" I mean, these kids' vacations take vacations. I hate them. But back to summer in the 70s. One night, when I was like 9 or 10, a miracle happened. My father decided to take me to the Jersey Shore, Seaside Heights, New Jersey, the Holy Grail. I'd heard about this far-off land an hour and a half away. It was filled with rides and lights and fun and ice cream and ice cream and ice cream. And I was so excited I was jumping out of my skin. I mean, I'd never been anywhere. So we pack in the car, me, my mother, my brother, my father, and we ride all the way down talking about this ride called the Swiss Bob. Even as a kid, I knew that sounded great, Swiss Bob, right? So my brother told me that when you're on it, the announcer comes on in intervals and says, "The Swiss Bob!" So I really wanted to go on it. And basically it was a car you sat in that went around and around like a racetrack really fast to rock music. And the urban myth was that some kids stood up while going in a tunnel and you got decapitated on it. So of course, I couldn't wait to go on the Swiss Bob. So we're driving down the parkway, and finally we get there. I was so naive, even the lights on the parkway excited me. Like the Raritan Bridge went up really high, and when you looked back, the red tail lights and the white headlights looked like a carnival. I was dazzled by headlights. So when we got out of the car to the boardwalk, you can imagine how crazed I was, jumping out of my skin. I was going to tear apart that boardwalk, eat every French fry, master every ride, including the Swiss Bob, buy puka shell necklaces, eat cheesesteaks, and maybe meet my husband at 10 years old. I was fearless and ready for one night of summer vacation. The disappointment of the evening was that I wasn't tall enough to ride the Swiss Bob. That was the first. Too young, too small. Why does God hate me, I thought. So we made our way over to the innocuous Ferris wheel, and I thought, all right, it goes around too. Fine, whatever. My father hands the 70s mustachioed carnival man the ticket, and we board. Door closes, here we go. Because I didn't know how a Ferris wheel or any kind of ride worked, I didn't realize you had to wait for other people to get on the thing. So we went up a bit, and then it would stop, like it was stuck. And I got scared. I was like, why are we stuck? And he said, they just have to let people on. So then we go up again, and it would stop, but this time the cart was swinging. And I was getting really scared, totally open, no roof. I was getting a little more panicked. My father was laughing. He was like, it'll be fine. We went higher and higher with each chug and each jam and each rock of the thing. I was really freaking out. Now, not only was I far away from my home, I was far away from the ground, and like panic set in, like terror. The rocking cart was terrifying me. My father couldn't calm me down. When we got to the top, I wanted to die. And then it got worse because the thing started going. So now we're going around and my stomach is dropping and rising and I don't like the feeling and it's going too fast. I've never been on anything like that before. And there's lights and there's no roof and I'm crying. And then I start screaming and then I start screeching, stop, make it stop. I'm gripping the bar so tight, I'm drooling, I'm crying, there's puke in my mouth, I'm losing my mind with fear. And then my father starts screaming at the guy, stop this thing, you gotta stop, my kid's gotta get off. And we're whooshing by him and I'm screaming and he's screaming. And finally the guy stopped the goddamn thing and he let us off. Even in the 70s, he stopped the Ferris wheel and let me off. So needless to say, I didn't go on the Swiss Bob or any ride ever again until I went on the Tilt-A-Whirl at a carnival my aunt took me to and I puked all over. And then when I was a teenager, I went on the flying carpet at the Meadowlands Fair and I turned green in front of Tommy Donlin, who I had a crush on. So I don't go on rides anymore, but I do go on my own vacations now. And one thing that is still the same is I'm easily dazzled by like nothing. I'll be somewhere like, oh my God, look at this handrail. Do you think they carved that out of wrought iron? It's amazing. So I'm very easily impressed. But what I don't do is go on family vacations. To this day, we have still never had one. Yeah.
Wow, that is unbelievable. Rachel, that's so funny. You were in Jersey and you didn't vacation every year at the Jersey Shore.
No, not until I was older teenager, much later.
That was very funny when you said you heard about this way off destination an hour and a half away. That is so funny.
Yeah, we just, we had like little means. And like I said, my father, I told you the story, you know all about it. So we just didn't really go. We stuck close to home and it was great. I mean, it was fun hanging around at home and stuff, but like I never had anything to write about. And I was like, I have vacation.
Yeah, we didn't do anything. That's so true. Now, like my daughter goes back to school this week. I mean, that assignment would be cruel now.
Well, it would. That's why I told the story, because I was like, my family invented the staycation. Like we're all doing it.
That's funny. Well, listen, Rachel, stick around for Story Smash, obviously. And folks, I can't thank you enough again for tuning into the Storyworthy Hour of Power. We're here every Sunday night, and then the show does go up on YouTube as well. You can just look for my name, Christine Blackburn. All right, you guys, I'm going to pass off the show to Blanca Patch in just a minute. But on behalf, one more time, of the fabulous, and go ahead and unveil yourselves, as it were. Tom Dressen, thank you so much, Tom. And Melissa Peterman, thank you, Melissa. Bill Dawes, fabulous. And the amazing Rachel Butera. Thank you guys so much. My name is Christine Blackburn. Good night.
I place my own bets and I make my own deals. So if you're following me, you better make clear, yeah. Hey, hey, hey. If you're looking for heaven, baby, the line forms to the rear, and you can follow me, follow me. I'll take you down to the river. Follow me, follow me. I'll keep you silent.
Thanks for joining us on the